Hello and welcome to Bolt Action Reloading. In this week's episode, we're going to make a small change to our 110 BA Stealth and 338 Lapua Magnum and get this project back in action. Stick around. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here and you'd like to see how I and the rest of you here make our group smaller, start now by subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell icon. That way you get notified when I post new videos and you won't miss anything. As everyone can see, the 338 Lapua is back on the table. Today we're going to go over some of the things that I've been fighting with in the background and just really haven't made much progress on lately. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to complete this relatively shortly and certainly get this project pointed again in the right direction. If you guys have kept up with this series, you'll know that I've had some historical issues with the screws in the rail to the action loosening up, and honestly, that problem has just continued. If you want to see this project from the start, I'll put a card up and you can go check it out. But essentially today, we're going to change out some things with the action, explain exactly what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and we can see what we're hopefully going to do to stop the plague of this problem going forward. Now, as you're going to see, there's actually another rail on the table. The rail itself was actually supplied by Savage. The first time I called Savage to get everything for the retorque spec, I cleaned everything up and retorqued it. However, the same problem happened again. After calling Savage a second time and explaining I was having the same problem, they offered and actually did send out a complete new upper rail system to put on this rifle. And I'm very thankful for their efforts. However, I don't think this is going to solve our problems. I'll put some shots on your screen. You can see exactly what I'm talking about. If I can get a good shot, you can see that the actual going from the front of the rifle towards the back of the rifle, let's just define what we're going to talk about right out of the gate. We're going to talk about a short screw, a medium screw, and a long screw, just so I don't mess up the numbers because I'm just going to be prone to do that. Directly from the factory, there actually is two different size screws that come installed in the rail. What I will refer to as the short screw and the medium screw. I'm not actually certain of the proper size of what we'll call the short screw. It has to be less than a 1/4 inch because the medium screw in the case, which is the longest one it's shipped with, is a 1/4 inch screw. In case you have any interest, these are actually number 840 screws and unfortunately aren't readily available on Amazon or any other place like that, which has caused part of my delay. Certainly not all of it. After actually calling Savage, they sent me out the entire rail system. I explained to the customer service on the phone that this was the screw configuration that came with it. Where this front rail screw actually bolts in, there's actually barrel threads in here, and so that does have to be short so it doesn't get into those threads. Every other screw in here appears to be able to take a much longer screw than that, yet the only one that's any longer, which is the 1/4 inch screw, which was in the third hole from the front. Every other screw was short. In addition to that, there's actually two different heads. So to put this thing together, you actually need two different bits. When I told Savage customer service this was the case, the nice customer service person indicated that that might not be correct, and again, sent us out an entire new rail. After getting exactly the identical system to what I already had, I was a little bit disappointed. But in case you're unaware, this rail, and of course I believe the chassis as well, is made by MDT. MDT is a good company. Lots of good information there about MDT, so honestly, my next call was to MDT customer service. MDT's customer service, I will try and say, tried to do the best job they could of servicing me. There is a part number on this rail, however, the gentleman that I talked to explained to me the best he could. This part number is for a machining program or something like that, and their system had no way of actually looking up to see exactly what part was on that I was trying to get help with, and exactly what the recommended screw length for this was. Because honestly, I've thought of a couple different options. One is just getting an entirely new base and whatever hardware that they recommended with that base to ensure that we no longer had this problem. But again, we might just have a problem with screws. After talking with them, they really tried to do the best job that they could. In the long run, sometimes the easiest way to solve the problem is yourself. So today I'm going to walk you through what I plan on doing, and if you stick around the channel, you'll find out if it lasts. I'm very optimistic that that's what's going to happen, but stick around if you want to check it out. Right now, let's just change camera angles and you'll be able to see a little bit better what's going on. So guys, hopefully we're in where you can see a little bit better. This is the configuration that it was in. Obviously, I've loosened a couple of screws so we can get right at it. We'll just take our scope off and set it to the side. I've actually already dry fit our new hardware so we know where we're going to go, but I wanted to show you everything I could and explain it just in case you had this problem so you would see what I did to solve my issue. Hopefully you guys can see real quick. This is actually hardware that we're going to switch to. So when I talked about a short screw, a medium screw, and long screws. Now the long screws are going to come into play. These are actually, I picked them up from Brownells, and I honestly couldn't find them anywhere else. I'm sure you guys can tell me 19 different places where they can be found, but without buying a complete screw kit, which I didn't know which one I was buying because I wanted to be able to fit them, just getting the screws from Brownells was the solution that I had picked. So the long screws in this case are going to be actually 3/8 length, number 8, 40 threads per inch, T15 headed Torx screws. I've honestly fit, and I'm going to show you guys, I've got a bore scope that I'm going to be able to put in, and you guys can actually see what the hardware is going to look like inside there, just in case you're afraid that these screws are going to be too long into the action, that you'll see exactly what they're going to look like, at least in my rifle, from the back to the front. This is a 3/8, 3/8 quarter, and whatever the short screw that comes with the action is what I'm going to reuse. So we're going to have 3 T15 heads, and again, I can't get back from having at least 1 T10 head. That is just the way it's going to go in this case. So now this is loose, we can take it off, and we're going to remove our bolt. Obviously, I checked prior to this that the rifle was clear, but, you know, it is the internet. You guys can worry about it if you want. So I'm going to repeat some of the stuff that we did before. So one of the bigger things you got to do, obviously, is make sure everything's clean. I cleaned this before, but we're going to do it again. Only thing I'm simply going to use is alcohol. This is 91% alcohol. And we're going to make sure that these are absolutely as clean as possible. The only screw that I can't get through is this one again that is sitting on top of the barrel threads. Everything else, actually, when the bolt is out, you can get in and clean these out. I might speed this up just so you guys can see it all, but I'm just going to take a regular pipe cleaner and clean these threads out to make sure that they're dry, clean, and will hopefully hold our new hardware as good as it possibly can. Now most everything's dried off by now. We've cleaned it all off with alcohol, and we've actually dried it out. Did the same to our screws because our screws are probably going to ship with some type of oil on them. Cleaned all that out. Just as I did last time, we're going to put some blue Loctite on it. This is just general blue medium strength thread locker. But hopefully with the extra thread engagement that we're going to get on here this time, with having bigger screws in essentially every hole but the first hole, we're going to get the maximum engagement we possibly can in the action, and hopefully this godforsaken problem will stop. So let's just get to it. So we've got all of our screws in there finger tight now. Now time to torque. Keep in mind again, we do still have 2 screw sizes, T10, T15 for the rest. We've Loctited everything, even put a drop of Loctite underneath the rail just in case there's something, a little bit of space to take up. So guys, just for fun, I'm going to run a bore scope through there and show you guys to make that you can see that those screws are just long enough. It's going to go through the whole thing and not going to interfere with our bolt as it runs through the action. And it's going to engage the threads the most it possibly can. I'm hoping that this hardware going forward is going to produce results that have this rail not loosen up on our rifle. If this video is still up, you can assume that this is still working and solved my issues. If not, I'm sure I will take the video down. I'll stop the bore scope at different places. You can see the different threads. Obviously, I'm only going to be able to show you 3 because, again, the threads on the front one is on top of the barrel threads, so it's not something you'll be able to see by running the bore scope through it. Anyway, I could show you how to remount the scope, but I'm sure that's a different time for a different video. I honestly haven't been in love with these SWFA rings, so I might be changing those out, but we might shoot a little bit more with those on there. But at least as far as the rail is concerned, I'm optimistic that this is going to get rid of our problem and going forward and hopefully alleviate any of our bad groups that we might shoot. Hopefully it'll be all sunshine and roses from here. And just for fun, if you guys want to see, we can put our bolt back in with that hardware installed, and it runs just fine. No interference from that, but again, I showed you the photos just so you could see, but obviously had no problems with the bolt running. If you decide to do this upgrade, hopefully you won't have any problems either. So guys, right, wrong, or indifferent, that's kind of what our solution has been. Having the extra threads engaged on those is going to help us in the long run ensure that we don't have our screws loosen up again. So to test this out, I thought we'd shoot something we've shot here before on the channel. We're actually going to reuse some of the brass from our Herter's 250 grain Sierra Match King projectiles. that we've shot here before on the channel. We've done a little bit of load work up with loader 26 in this projectile, so our factory ammo shot about 28-19 feet per second, had a pretty good SD of 5.1 and extreme spread of 12. Getting where somewhere close to that would be ideal. So because I'm endlessly trying to test everything, we're actually doing 2 different primers today, 10 shots, 5 with each type of primer. Unfortunately, when we go to the range today, we're not going to take any warm-up rounds with us, and so the first rounds to the rifle will be the 215M on a cold barrel, and when we look at the velocity, it's possible it will get effect to it. But for today's video, we're actually using 88.4 grains of our loader 26. We'll pull a round of the factory ammo out just for fun and talk a little bit about the dimensions. So the cartridge overall length we picked is 3.680 inches for our reloads today. Look at our measurements for reference. Obviously, the 250 grain Sierra Match King is what it uses. It states that right there on the box. After getting the CBTO to the lands and doing the measurement on the factory ammunition, it appears the factory ammunition is actually loaded about 100 thousandths off the lands, which is a fairly significant jump. So for today's testing, we're going to actually shorten that to about 10 thousandths. So even though the CBTO on the stock ammunition is about 2.850 inches, loading that cartridge overall length of 3.680 inches is going to put us right there about 10 thousandths off the lands, and hopefully we'll find some good accuracy. Last time we shot this, accuracy wasn't bad, a little bit over an MOA. For being this is budget ammo, I was certainly happy for the price per performance of which we got for our factory ammunition. Anyway, let's go out to the range. We'll see how this rifle performs, and hopefully our rifle scope stays locked down this time. Welcome back. What a feat. We actually shot 2 groups in a row. Getting a little bit used to the rifle again since we haven't shot it in a while here on the channel. Part of the group is probably me, but going right through our data, just to keep you guys wondering, we'll go to the velocity chart first. You'll see our 215Ms. I don't want to make excuses, but we didn't have a chance to actually warm our rifle up, so there is a reasonable chance that that 2827 and 2833 velocity are just because it was a cold barrel. We can certainly see our next 3 shots, 2853, 2853, and 2847. If that very well held true, we certainly wouldn't complain about that load. Not that if we go a little bit higher, the 215s are anything to sneeze at. Keep in mind the only real difference theoretically between these is one is a match grade primer and one is not. So the 215s in this case do show a obvious velocity increase. But for these 3, the barrel was already warmed up. We had let it obviously cool down between the 2 5-shot strings. So our second group there, we shot a average velocity of 2873 feet per second, standard deviation of 5.4, extreme spread of 13, and a 1.032 MOA group. Our first group with those 2 lower shots included 2843 was the velocity that we saw today, standard deviation of 12, but likely really not a fair comparison. That group was a 1.310 MOA group. Comparing to our factory ammo, seeing a standard deviation of 5.4 versus 5.1, I'm sure had we had a larger grouping, we would have been able to better compare that. But overall, I'm reasonably happy that with our, what I'll just call cheaper brass, being able to reasonably reproduce that load with some accuracy was all we were really looking for today. Not exactly one whole group, but we'll take it as far as just putting a load together and seeing how it shoots. What we're really here for is to see that the rifle scope didn't loosen up, and honestly, our group stayed tight for the whole time. If you've actually seen the 285 ELDM video that I've posted before, you'll see this rifle seems to so far really like the 285 ELDM by Hornady, and I'm going to do some further load development with that. Shooting that velocity string and getting it well under an MOA really impressed me. So once we've got the scope thing figured out here, if it stays true that our scope rail is going to stay tightened up now, that really is probably our next stop to test here on the channel as far as 338 Lapua is concerned. I really hope this video helps a couple of you guys out there figure out what you might be able to do to try and get your scope rail to stop loosening up. The next step for me, if this didn't work, was just to go pick up a aftermarket scope rail, see if I could have better luck getting that to work. Anyway, even if you're not shooting .338 Lapua Magnum, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you have any comments or questions, please post those in the comments section below. If you like the content here on the channel, hit that subscribe button, turn the bell notification on so you get notified when I post next week's video. I hope to see you back next week, and until then, stay safe in small groups.